future of global retail and e-commerce. I'm Matt Posta, a senior partner with One Business World, excited to be here today. As one of the largest and most influential initiatives in the industry, global retail brings together visionary leaders to address forces transforming retail, technological innovation, sustainability, and evolving consumer expectations. Over the next days, we will explore groundbreaking ideas, actionable strategies, and leadership insights that redefine commerce. This is more than a conference, it's a call to action to lead with purpose, collaborate effectively, and drive meaningful impact. Welcome again to the Global Retail Conference. It's now my pleasure to welcome Doug Zarkin, who will discuss moving your brand out of the friend zone. Doug, over to you.
Great. Thanks for having me and welcome everybody. Um, Moving your brand out of the friend zone. Interesting title. I hope you agree. The provocation is really thinking about where your brand needs to be in the mind of your consumers. Rather than get into a lengthy background about myself, I thought I would play this quick short video that'll give you some perspective on why perhaps I'm here today and hopefully setting up for why your time is well spent sitting in on the session. So let's click right to the video.
The great John Lennon said it best, all you need is love. That's true in your personal life, and actually it's true in business.
Please welcome back the VP of Pearl Vision, Doug Zarkin. How you doing?
Doug Zarkin joins me today. Welcome back, good to see you.
Thanks for having me back. Hi, my name's Doug Zarkin, retail and brand marketing expert and author of my first book, Moving Your Brand Out of the Friend Zone. In my book, I talk about how to really understand the notion of the different customer zones. Being friends with your consumer is great, but we really want to create brand love.
Probably the hardest thing in any business model is quality of care.
The ability to care for people behind the eyes.
And when they can see life in focus, anything's possible.
Right.
We'll explore the depth of understanding how trust is really earned between brands and consumers.
You know, trust is earned in a series of small moments. It's not what the bigger players are doing by giving product away. It's actually about listening.
We'll explore, importantly, about how to build a high-performing team. It's great to lead, but you've got to ensure that people are going to follow. Brands need to go deeper. They need to create passionate, trusted relationships with their consumers. I firmly believe that it's not about a right way or a wrong way. What this book really is designed to do is to help you find your way, to unlocking your brand's power and creating that all-important brand love.
So let's start at the basics. What is marketing? Ask yourself to explain it to somebody like me or to somebody that you work with. More often than not, you will get into a 5 or 7 minute diatribe about everything you read in undergrad or grad school about what marketing is. What is its purpose, how you get there, etc. At its core, I firmly believe that marketing is about motivating the consumer to do what we want them to do when we want them to do it. It is incredibly bold to believe that you as a brand can get in the mind of a consumer, figure out how to stimulate the action you want them to take at the time and period that you want to take it. With that lofty goal comes some pretty big challenges that we all face in thinking about how we create that really strong relationship. You know, as I think about it, it comes down to a fundamental marketing is about positioning, which is about the art of sacrifice. So I want you to think about this visual of going to a buffet. We've all been to a buffet. You know, we've had a little lobster, we've had a little pizza, we've had a little steak, we've had a little ice cream, a little apple pie. How does your body feel after a buffet? That's exactly how brands feel and their consumers feel about brands when they try to be everything to everybody. They end up being nothing to nobody. They end up with that case of indigestion and heartburn because the consumer is not clear as to who they are and what reason to believe that they exist in their life. And so for me, as I think about building those brand relationships, and I really think about it as a relationship, I immediately go to the friends that I have in my life and the friends that you have in your life. And I'm sure that not all of your friends are created equal in your mind, in your life, in the way you think about them, and importantly, what you would do for them. But imagine if all of your friends treated you as if you were their best friend. What a world it would be. How would you react when they called? How would you react when they email? What would you even send them? And that's the same thing when it comes to consumers. Imagine if every consumer that walked into your store was the only consumer that you were going to see that day, what kind of customer experience would you bring? What interaction would you have? What would you do post-purchase? Oftentimes, scale gets in the way of intimacy. Intimacy, not in a creepy way, but intimacy in a way that really makes somebody feel special. And so, as I think about the premise of thinking human, which is treating every customer as if they were your only customer, it's important to ground ourselves in a human truth. And the human truth is that people make emotional decisions before they make rational choices. You got to win their heart before you win their mind. Their heart is what's going to tell them that, yeah, I think I'm going to click on that website and go to it. The head is, I'm going to buy it or make an appointment or book an exam or something along those lines. But if you don't appeal to their heart, you're never going to get in their head. And that really is the premise for beginning the conversation about where brands live in what I call the 4 relationship zones. And let me go through them each very specifically. So, in thinking about the relationship zones, it is important to understand the 2 paradigms, trust and passion. And so I want to play this quote from Dr. Brene Brown about how trust is built.
And I'm like, how am I going to explain trust to this 3rd grader in front of me? So I took a deep breath and I said, Ellen, trust is like a marble jar. She said, what do you mean? And I said, you share those hard stories and those hard things that are happening to you with friends who over time you filled up their marble jar. They've done thing after thing after thing where you're like, I know I can share this with this person. Does that make sense? And that's what Ellen said. Yes, that makes sense.
I love this quote, trust is built one marble at a time. If you think about it, when you're building a relationship with a consumer, it is not about grand gestures. It is not about buy one, get one free. It is about the small things that we do throughout the entire experience that make that customer feel as if they were your only customer that day. It makes them feel special. Now let's talk a little bit about passion.
Every person who comes to the ranch is in need of some form of physical or mental help. They're patients. But also every person who comes to the ranch is in charge of taking care of someone else. Whether it's cooking for them, cleaning them, or even a simple task as listening. That makes them doctors. I use that term broadly, gentlemen, but is not a doctor someone who helps someone else? When did the term doctor get treated with such reverence as, oh, right this way, Dr. Smith, or, excuse me, Dr. Scholes, what wonderful foot pads, or, pardon me, Dr. Patterson, but your flatulence has no odor. At what point in history did a doctor become more than a trusted and learned friend who visited and treated the ill? Now, you ask me if I've been practicing medicine. Well, if this means opening your door to those in need, those in pain, caring for them, listening to them, applying a cold cloth until a fever breaks, if this is practicing medicine, if this is treating a patient, then I am guilty as charged, sir.
Great movie. If you're not familiar, Patch Adams, Robin Williams. And I love this quote because it really gets into the notion of how to really instill that passion in your experience. Don't treat the disease, treat the person. You'll always win. And so as we think about the first relationship zone that I call brand like, high degree of trust, low degree of passion. These are brands and experiences that aren't glamorous, but indispensable when needed. It's not a bad place to be, but it definitely comes with its own set of risks. And the risks really are that without that strong emotional attachment, you are very susceptible to competitive conquesting. You are very susceptible to the next Instagram or TikTok brand. It's wonderful that consumers can rely on you. But at the end of the day, if you don't reach them in their heart, if you don't excite them, if you don't create that intensity, you risk being pulled away by the next shiny penny. Now let's talk about shiny pennies for a minute. Brand flings. If any of you are out there are music fans, we've all heard the expression one hit wonder. You know, it's a group or a singer that has a hit, it goes to the top of the charts, and then you never hear from them again. It's the same thing in branding and products. You know, how many times have we seen an idea or an item all of a sudden become top of mind with consumers? I'll give a really good example. If you guys all remember the fidget spinner, it was that thing you would hold between 2 fingers and you would spin it. And They were in every convenience store, every bodega. You could buy them online. They came in colors and shapes, and it was a wonderful product. And the person who held the patent on that product decided, oh my God, I've got a business here. And so I'm going to put out something called the fidget cube. There's probably two of you on this Zoom that have a fidget cube. The reality is that their second product didn't win because they didn't build a brand. They sold a successful product. And so it's wonderful to go viral, but we've all seen these brands having to comp growth a year that went viral. It's almost impossible. So be very mindful. If you hit it big, wonderful, congratulations. But ask yourself, have I started to build a business or have I just sold a successful product? And then act accordingly. Now, brand hate, interesting word, polarizing word. These are companies that actually thrive not because they're beloved, okay? Not because they're trusted, but because they're needed. And I think the utility companies are a great example. Nobody loves the electric company or the water company, but you need them. They're not doing anything to earn your trust. All they're doing is sending a bill. And these brands, these businesses, these services know that they're in this category. Because when you try to reach somebody in customer service and you're screaming into your phone, representative, 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 or you're hitting zero repeatedly, you know that something's not right. You know that something's not right in their model because they have to know that consumers aren't liking them at all, but you need them. It's kind of like when you're in the airport and you want to buy a snack, there's only so many choices. Nobody loves shopping for food at the airport. You just kind of have to. So, brands that fall in this place, hey, you can make a huge amount of money doing it, but be wary because if and when an opportunity to sub you out comes in, someone's going to sub you out. Now, this one is a little provocative, the friend zone. Being friends with your consumer, moderate to low passion and lukewarm trust. You got to ask yourself, but hey, being friends with your customer, that can't be bad. I mean, being friends with people is a good thing. And it's a good thing in branding. It's a good thing in marketing, but it's not a great thing. And the challenge there is that oftentimes, like in a relationship, you know, I've married 22 years. I dated a lot of people before I met my wife. And certainly as I go back through my single life, I realized there were moments in time where I perhaps had feelings that were stronger for the person than they had for me. And that's when you kind of realize that, what, let's just be more, let's just be friends. And that's actually true in business as well. This idea of when you miss forecast by 10, 11, 12%, oftentimes you have grossly overestimated your relationship with your existing customer. You thought they were going to come back. You thought they were going to buy again. You thought they were going to trade up. And in reality, you're just friends, friends, not best friends. And go back to my provocation at the beginning of today's talk. What if every friend in your life treated you as if you were their best friend? In business, treating your customer as friend is fine, but that's not a deep relationship. It's not going to get you that certainty to know that they're going to be there for you when you absolutely need them. The place you want to be, the golden ticket, brand love. Very, very hard to be there and very hard to stay there. That's why there are people like chief marketing officers and chief brand officers and chief experience officers, because when you find that high degree of passion and that high degree of trust, that's when you actually have to do the really hard work to figure out how you're going to stay there. And that's because today, what leads to trust may not be what tomorrow leads to trust. Today, they may be passionate about you, but if you take your foot off the gas in innovation, if you take your foot off the gas in customer experience, if you take your foot off the gas in loyalty, you can find yourself moving out of brand love and into the friend zone pretty quickly. If there's anything I talk about in my book that I'm most proud of, it is probably this very simple formula. Whether you're making 50, 500, $5 million a year, everybody wants value from the brands and services that they take advantage of. And so if you think about it, value is equal to the experience you deliver, virtual or otherwise, divided by the price that you charge. What I love is that debate of, can we charge more money? You can charge whatever you want, provided the experience is 4 to 5 times greater than what you're charging. I mean, think about it. If you go to a fancy hotel like a Four Seasons and a Ritz-Carlton and they treat you beautifully, they call you by name, they get your chairs at the pool, they bring you frozen fruit, nothing is a problem. While you're on vacation, you're not thinking about that you're paying $400 or $500 a night for that room. But I travel a lot for work. Imagine rolling up to one of those business hotels and the Wi-Fi doesn't work, or they don't have a hair dryer in the room, or they only gave you one towel, or the sheets are scratchy. That hotel room may only be $199, but you are angry. You are furious that you've wasted all this money in going there. That's the brand value equation quintessentially. Value equals experience over price. Deliver an amazing experience, you can charge a premium price and still have a positive value equation. A really interesting way to think about the formula behind brand love and how the value equation really takes form is taking an example of Starbucks. Starbucks basically took a commodity, turned it into a good, delivered it at a service, and created an experience. And whether you're a Starbucks fan or you're like me who prefers Dunkin', you have to respect the fact that Starbucks transformed diner coffee into an experience. Some people don't even love the coffee at Starbucks, but they go for the experience. They go for the joy of sitting there for a few hours and being seen. They go there because they enjoy the ordering process. They enjoy the special drinks. Starbucks is getting back to basics and really creating an amazing experience. And the price that comes with it actually signals to the customer that $5 or $8 that you pay for that coffee signals that you understand that experience and maybe that product is better than everybody else. But again, it's all relative. It's all relative to the power of the brand experience, the delta between your experience and your price point. So let's go back to a couple key takeaways before we wrap up and take a couple questions. So as I said before, marketing is about positioning, which is about the art of sacrifice. Nobody feels good after the buffet. People don't feel good and brands don't feel good. So you've got to really practice that art of sacrifice about how do you want to win in the mind and the heart and the wallet of the consumer. Positioning is not just about marketing. Positioning is the North Star for everything that you do. You've got to figure out as a brand leader what you're going to be best and win at. And then you've got to design every aspect of your experience from your store design to your customer experience, to your product assortment, to your post-purchase experience around living up to that ideal. Trust earned through a series of small moments. Those small moments may change as your relationship with the consumer goes, as society changes, but it's not a grand gesture. It is a free refill as an example. It is holding the door for somebody when you walk in. It is calling them on the phone the next day and saying, hey, I want to thank you for visiting my location. Is there any questions about the product that you purchased? Small things like that can add a tremendous amount of meaning to the relationship. The provocation of thinking human. What if every customer was treated as if they were your only customer? Think about what you would do different in your customer experience. And then something we didn't talk a lot about today, but it kind of goes back to really understanding the hearts and minds, passion and trust. We live in a data-driven world, but data doesn't make decisions. We, experts, brand experts, make decisions using data because importantly, we understand which questions to ask. Data can be manipulated to tell any story you want, but if you're not asking the right questions, just because it's measured doesn't mean it's meaningful. So a final thought, as I look at my kids, I think about the world that they're living in, and I think about the challenges as a marketer that we have in front of us. And it brings me to this quote from one of my favorite athletes of all time, not just because I'm a avid tennis player, but because of what really Billie Jean understood about the situation that she was in her life, in breaking the glass ceiling. Pressure is a privilege. If you're on this Zoom, if you're watching this, if you're listening to it, regardless of what level you are, the business of building brands, retail and otherwise, is a challenge. There's a lot of pressure that goes with it. But it's a privilege to be able to take the time and engage with the consumer and hopefully get them to realize that what you are doing with your product and service is not just something mundane. It's really the start of an incredibly strong and hopefully long relationship. I hope you'll take the opportunity to check out my book on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. And I thank you guys for your time.
Doug, That was terrific. And a lot of the messaging really resonated with me. I think a lot of it has parallels with professional services. In all of my years serving clients, I think the most important thing is really understanding the customer's agenda and how we can deliver value, right? Oftentimes that's with leading with empathy and just so many great things that you synthesized there. Um, I also didn't have a fidget cube, right? So I'm not sure about others, but a lot of what you mentioned resonated with me. And so at One Business World, we really are striving to think about how we can make these insights very actionable for clients. And I thought that many of your comments were terrific and great guiding principles. But if you were a brand manager and you wanted to try to action some of these things, what would the top three things be, from your perspective? Would you get voice of the customer? Would you, how would you kind of action that? Maybe if you can kind of give us a couple thoughts on that, that would be awesome.
Matt, it's a great question. I think it starts with getting out of the boardroom, so to speak, and getting on the front lines of your business. So in my career, I've had the privilege of working in a number of different companies, one of which was Avon. So you're talking one of the few guys that was an Avon lady. Very disturbing for my 17-year-old daughter now, that I know how to sell a lip gloss. But what it taught me is the importance of understanding that strategy without execution is nothing more than words on paper. And so if you're in an e-com business, work customer service phone lines. If you're in a retail business, work the floor. One of the things that I do with my team in my current role is I require them to be in stores every quarter, excuse me, for a day. And that's just honestly to keep our feet on the ground, to be always listening to one of the most important tools in our toolbox, which are our frontline associates, and being able to see if there's something that the data isn't telling us. Because again, go back to my point, data is only as good as the questions that you ask. Oftentimes, it's your frontline folks that can give you a great question to provoke a great idea to measure to hopefully create something that solves a problem or unlocks an insight.
I think that's really terrific. And, you know, one of the things also, being a business owner and former leader in the Big Four is getting that customer, feedback and that voice of the customer. But it's a delicate balance because, on the one hand, you need to get that feedback and you need to action it and use it to tailor your services and your products, et cetera. But on the other hand, you can't continuously do it. So do you have any recommendations on the frequency of that? Especially, we're at an inflection point now with how things are evolving with AI and just go-to-market strategies and just the development of brands. And so I guess how often should brand managers and others be evaluating these and kind of looking at what's working and what's not working?
Layered question. At the heart of it, I think is really about how does AI fall into your ecosystem? Is that kind of where you're going?
It's kind of that, but it's also like how often should you double check to make sure you're charting the right course? Is it an annual thing? Is it semi-annually? How often should you be taking the pulse of the customer?
I think you should be taking the pulse of the customer monthly. I think it's really important to be able to keep enough of a sense of how they're doing without micromanaging so you can see trend.
Got it. Okay. And I think that makes sense. I think, and also there's probably some motion detectors and things that you'll be aware of that you can monitor if things aren't going well, right? Like maybe sales are,
Sure. Sure. I mean, you can look at lifetime value, you can look at duration between purchase. Reputation score is enormous. I am a believer in something that I think perhaps I've coined called reputation commerce,
Mhm.
which is go back to the annals of time, the first marketing person, whoever that may be, they recognize that the power of word of mouth is unmatched. Word of mouth manifests in different ways today. Society has X and threads and Meta and customer service phone calls and emails that we all get and LinkedIn posts. But the reality is that word of mouth feedback is tremendous, absolutely tremendous, and that's important. It's important to keep it in mind.
Totally. Well, I really appreciate your time here today. I
Thank
may
you.
consult with you afterwards to get some Avon advice for my daughters.
No, no worries.
We made a
No
cool
worries.
bet. But on behalf of One Business World, I just want to thank you. Want everybody, all of our listeners, to check out your book, and
Thank you.
and everybody have a great rest of your day and enjoy the conference. Thank you. We'll close it now.
Thank you.